So here we are. Sam, how are you doing this morning?
Yeah, really good. Thank you, mate. Got a coffee in front of me.
Absolutely. How it's got to be done. So this show's called Changing Lanes, and when I found your profile on Instagram, I'd had a little look, which ended up that little look ended up being quite a big binge. You kind of embodied that title, and I'm like, I've got to have this guy. Like, he's he's fucking awesome. Like the variety of things you talk about, the like authenticity, which is so important to me and something that I just love to see. The stories, the things that you talk about, the insights. Like a lot of your stuff is for professional athletes. I'm not one of those people, but it's still incredibly insightful because I I love the sporting world, and especially with your rugby background, that's something that's a particular interest to me. So yeah, here we are, a few weeks later, um, ready to get into it. Now, you've been on one hell of a roller coaster ride over the past few years, which is something I want to dig into. Again, because it's massively about the changing lanes side of things. Without starting incredibly morbidly, a few years ago, you received some bad news with regards to your health. Should we
Yeah.
start?
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Absolutely.
Cool. So obviously, this is probably a massive part of your journey. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your cancer diagnosis?
Yeah, man. So it was just signed for Jersey. Hadn't actually gone over yet on the old boat. And I was training with my brother. Now I'm normally fitter than my brother. And that summer he started beating me in a lot of our running, weights, CrossFit style sessions. And I knew something was up. Eventually got quite ill, just had a bit of man flu, and then eventually got over and was getting treated for asthma. My heart rate was getting into like 200s just in the warm up. A couple of weeks went by and I had other issues with like inflammatory on certain lymph nodes, and it was all a bit strange really, and classic old me, which I know a lot of people I coach and a lot of people just bottle it up and put it under the carpet and be like, yeah, let's keep hammering the door down. So I kept training, just kept like eating, the best food I could, and eventually had an X-ray and they found a fairly large tumor on my lymph node, which is just in the center of your sternum, just behind your sternum here. And yeah, it was straight away back up north. So I'm in Darlington in the northeast, and it was straight to hospital. Throughout the whole thing, it was so strange because at rest I was absolutely fine. Couldn't see it, couldn't feel it, had no understanding of it. Uh, but as soon as they explained to me that I've got to get on a flight that evening, it was just like a world filled full of uncertainty. I thought they were gonna have to cut it out, and I'd be left with ribs, and I'd be like Superman, and like Superman, like. So yeah, man, it was an absolute whirlwind, and yeah, well, one of the things I look back on it, like I was so supported, like all the coaches at Jersey had like that evening, like came around and had pizza with me and a couple of the lads, like just so normal, and they knew like something serious was up. So the support they had for me and as a club throughout my treatment was awesome, mate. So yeah, absolute whirlwind. That's the diagnosis.
Yeah. So when obviously you get that information, can you go back there and like identify that like those first thoughts and feelings?
Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of my experience with doctors, interpersonally, it's sometimes quite difficult for them to actually explain both directly and clearly, but also with like empathy and not sympathy, but just a full understanding. So when he said to me, like, because they didn't know actually what it was, they weren't sure if it was cancerous, they weren't sure if it was just some other thing, without a proper diagnosis and biopsy. So they couldn't really tell me, but they did know that I was, you know, heading into critical condition if it wasn't sorted, and I got care straight away, and that couldn't be done in Jersey. So I remember. Oh yeah, I remember when I first got the call from the X-ray people, and they said you need to come to hospital right now. I was sat having a nap before a team social in Jersey. It was in pre-season, and we were about to head out on the boat, like have beers, like jumping off the boat in one of the bays. Um, because I'd been ill, I came over a bit later, so I hadn't met any of the boys. So it was one of those like a little bit apprehensive and excited, but like so. Um, I was having a nap in the car park actually, just because I was like, because obviously I was in a bad state because I've been training, had this tumor in me, didn't even know. It's probably why I was having the nap. And I just got this call. I remember thinking, fuck's sake, like I've got to go to the hospital now. And yeah, that was all like quite strange, but that was the moment. Yeah, it was like I remember being in the ward and like they gave me some anti-inflammatory straight away, just like one of the first things they could do. Like called my mum, called my girlfriend at the time, and just been like, yeah, being so like that kind of cloud over you, like cloud of uncertainty, where you're like, I don't know what the fuck's this gonna look like. Like I've no idea, no idea, and that's like so overwhelming, just filled of like worry and anxiousness, and yeah, man, it was a really like a vulnerable state I was in the hospital.
Yeah. And obviously, like, you get that news, you've got that kind of overwhelming fear, dread, overwhelm. And, you sat here today and you often talk about these sort of things. So, how did you go about starting to process and shift that sort of, you know, quite alarming news?
Excuse me. It was kind of like because I was so good at bottling things up. It was just like it was quite clear what I had to do. So the next step was to do this in the hospital and then do this and then this. So in my mind, I was like, I suppose putting complete faith and trust in like modern medicine. That was part of it, you know, because like emotionally I was all over the place for sure. Like, I like got frustrated. I got in a state of like complete worry, like literally like rugby's out the window at this point. I'm like, right, I'm done. And after I got the flight back, like I think I cried the whole way home, just like in that. When you're on a plane and it's quite atmospheric and you get above the clouds, I'm like, yeah, this could be not like death's door, but like I'm in some serious trouble here.
Over the end of the street, you're not
Yeah,
down
yeah,
to the, yeah.
definitely felt like that. My girlfriend picked me up from I flew back into London and we drove up and it was kind of like not talking about the elephant in the room, but again, it was just like, okay, what's the next thing? Like they're gonna get it diagnosed, they're gonna get the biopsy, and we're gonna figure it out. So it was like I've always been quite good at, I suppose, like my mindset towards rugby was always like, yeah, just like buckle up and carry on and crack on with it, and that definitely served me really, really well. And I think probably led me down to all my inquiry and all my study and exploration now in both myself and my mind, but also helping other people. Um, because that was my only way to do it, and that was great. That served me really well because I got to deal with it in a way that I didn't like break down in panic attacks, even though there was a couple of times which were panicky, but overall I was fairly stable, amongst it all. And aside to that, like I said, like the Jersey staff was so supportive, and then my girlfriend, and then my mum and dad. Yeah, my family were amazing, and we're just speaking it through. And there's only so much you can, because there's so much unknown. There's only so much you can like hypothesize or like summarize. We're not going on Google thinking what's this tumor about. It's impossible. So there's only so much we could like talk about. And after that, it was like I'm home. I get to spend time with mum and dad, which I didn't spend a lot of time with because of rugby and over in Jersey.
Yes, obviously that's kind of what I'm hearing is you went into just like the like a mindset of like what's next,
Yeah,
what's the next play. So obviously that's probably something that's come from like your playing career kind of thing. And like that's such a, like I said, it's so easy, even over really trivial stuff of just dramatizing and stressing and getting yourself so caught up in that moment of like, oh my God, what if this, what if that, and just like what's winding yourself up about it. Get back to Northeast. You, you've started speaking to the doctors. What sort of starts happening after that?
so as soon as I went to literally walked into A&E, would you thought like literally walked into A&E saying, yeah, literally, which is bizarre. Again, because at rest I was fine. Like I had no, I wasn't like I'd probably, you could tell I'm more ill now than I when I had the tumor walking into A&E. It's
Yeah.
like a dichotomy. You can't understand it. And with the report, and they were like got straight into care, and they started the process of like monitoring, and it got to the point where my went for some more scans and started the process of booking in a biopsy, which was like pretty stressful procedure, having like a shotgun kind of mechanism going into my chest. Yeah, as you can imagine, like a jolt, like 3 or 4 times. That was disgusting. But that only happened after like a week, so I spent a little bit of time in the hospital. Actually, because um they still didn't know what it was. I was under care. They gave me a load of steroids, which starts basically to try and overload the fast dividing cells, the cancerous cells, which like slows the process somewhat. Got to the point where when the scans came back, it was pushing actually on my heart, and I started generating fluid around my heart, which obviously that buildup can cause heart issues. So I was in the hospital, and then came out of hospital, and then one probably like a week happened, waiting for the biopsy, all the biopsy results to come back. And on one of the days when I was back here, like I went for a dog walk in the morning, and then went for another dog walk in the evening, just because I wanted to move, like and I struggle. Then I struggled to do not a lot. And after that one, the evening, mate, it just basically overcooked my system. Came back, and in the evening I had pains in my chest, and I actually ended up collapsing on my bathroom floor. And that was like probably the closest that I was to like that being it, because there was so much pressure on my system, and yeah, that was.
Was there anything particularly crazy about those dog walks? Just like a couple of K round where you live, or
Yeah, not even that, mate. It's like around the park, but just because, yeah, mentally, but also like my body was under so much stress and my heart was under so much stress. That was the problem. Like my heart was like literally being pressed, so it was beating really hard. So that was pretty scary. And then after that, yeah, I was in hospital like full time, monitored because of my heart and the state my heart was under and the pressure my heart was under and the fluid. There's a lot going on. After that, got the biopsy results eventually, and then they they gave me a more generic first round of chemotherapy, just put anything in my system to prevent it from growing. Because it's such fastly dividing type of cancer, which actually played in my hand, because they said if I was going to get any form of cancer, this is a great one to get, because the success rate of the particular style of chemotherapy is highly, highly successful. So I had that, and yeah, man, just in hospital. Then just a couple of people came and visited, and the second round, it wasn't until like I got on the proper course, well, the course that was really successful, and went over to Middlesbrough, where I had an infusion for 6 days at a time. I was on a drip for 6 days, and then I had 5 rounds of that over the next 3 months. 1 week in, 2 weeks off. Yeah, man, the side effects and the feeling of being hungover is probably why I don't drink now.
yeah. So, like you said there about you really struggled at that point in time to not do a lot. Obviously, essentially being tied to a hospital bed.
Yeah.
Very limited movement. And did I hear somewhere that was in the middle of COVID as well?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. So that's just like an extra layer of
Yeah.
location on top. So
Yeah.
do you think that's where that you started to become more okay of just that kind of doing nothing, if that makes sense?
Yeah. Yeah. No, literally running myself into the ground. Literally, like summarizes that again through rugby and reading Johnny Wilkinson's autobiography, and all my sources of inspiration when I was younger, way back when. And it was always more is more, you know, like sleep more, kick more, train harder. It was great because it worked, and created a career from it, doing chucking a ball around, which is amazing. But it was when I was on the bathroom floor having like heart palpitations and having a seizure, I was like, yeah, okay, I've got to chill out here. It's like, okay, that's my limit, and it really was my limit.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. But again, like it's so hard. I suppose as you get older, you get more experience and more wise to that. When you're younger, you have so much energy, and you think you are kind of like fearless, and you don't really know where your boundaries is, and you can only, I suppose, you only know your limit once you've really tested it. And albeit, like I kept on pushing it with a big old brick in my chest, but yeah, certainly, mate, that was a big shift for me, and probably actually having collapsed actually allowed me to chill out more. because I was like, okay, like the body's like cooked here, and it really allowed me to start taking things a little bit slower, and probably sparked like my curiosity about like, cool, so I can't do it my way, so there's gonna have to be a new way.
Yeah, amazing. And what did you start to find was the new way?
Started reading philosophy, psychology, got very into Stoic philosophy when I was in hospital a lot.
I think that's a very good sort of like mindset to be in. You know, I think if I ever ended up in hospital for whatever reason, I'm like, someone bring me the Daily Stoic and I'll read 365 pages in
Yeah.
one day.
It's a great source of grounding, you know. Got really into that, mate. I suppose another jolt for me was, and I've told this story before, but one of my first rounds I was in, like I just binged Vikings for like 9 hours straight, just trying to escape, you know, escape from reality, just get
Yeah.
away. And I realized that having binged Vikings, I actually felt worse mentally than my body did at that time. You know, when you binge something, you just get a bit like, you know, you feel a bit shit. And I was like, oh wait, like I can actually, my mind is free here somewhat. Like there's something unaffected here. I was like, I don't want to. I felt terrible after that, and I was like, why would I do stuff to make myself feel terrible when my body's feeling like horrendous anyway? Having processed all the chemotherapy drugs and the body's working overtime to just simply get that out of my system. It does its thing, it gets attracted to the tumor, does its thing, but then it's like kidneys and liver in overdrive, just exiting, you know? So I was like, there's more to this. So yeah, just dived into, ordered a couple of books, create schedules. That was really good for me. Took the clock down in my wardroom because I don't know if you like Chronos time and Kairos time. Once you know that phrase, when you're enjoying something, time flies. Time flies when you're having fun. Like just got engaged and stuff, man, and it just made those 6 days like go. Got some Lego sets, like all next door neighbor had some Lego sets that he collected. Like I was building the red bus and the mini, and yeah, all sorts. So it was like it was really clear to me that like, oh, like I've always been interested in mindset and never really properly explored it with rugby when I was in it. But yeah, it really set a course, set a, like an opportunity. I was like, oh, there's more to it, you know. It was just really really engaging and satisfying for me.
Yeah, amazing. So obviously, you know, you get to a point where you know you get the all clear, you get into the end of that sort of period of your life, and then it's the challenge of getting back to normal. Now you went straight back, well, not obviously straight, but you went back to Jersey to go back playing for the Reds. So how was that journey of going from hospital bed back to the field?
First thing comes to mind is how supported I was. Jersey staff were finding specialists in nutrition for people who have had athletes that have had chemotherapy and got by playing. They were finding the programs that we were creating. I was logging my heart rate throughout a 24-hour period. So I was logging it, and we were finding out how high my heart rate went just to get up to go to the toilet because it was getting into like 180s to 190s because my body's under so much stress. And that we started, creating a plan, and like, I don't know, man, I find so much comfort in just following a plan. Like always just had that, you know, like that's the plan. Let's just go and do that. Again, I started bringing in, I suppose, some more awareness and emotional intelligence, I suppose, with how I'm feeling each day, and got on a Whoop band and was logging my heart rate, and that really provided a more objective measure rather than subjective, you know, because I just crack on, you know. So I learned a lot during that period, and yeah, man, I'd lost over 10 kilos of muscle, and I was pretty skinny, which was like very interesting for my own self-image and how I saw myself. And yeah, I could barely do press-ups at the start. Yeah, man. But once we had the plan, it was like it started off with walks, and then it started off with longer walks, and then we started off doing some really basic like standing up, sitting down on the chair. Again, it wasn't so much like a muscle fatigue standpoint. It was my heart rate. It was all heart rate limited because my heart had like got so weak because I was so immobile. And it was under so much stress, it just got weaker. And my resting heart rate, you know, the efficiency of my body was low, so it was all heart rate limited. It was like, okay, how much can we do without getting symptoms and like overcooking the body? Because again, like my immune system's all over the place as well, having just been like absolutely obliterated. So just very slow, mate. Again, like practicing slowness, like practicing other things as well in my routine, like meditation and journaling and taking the time to write. Yeah, I learned so much about just doing that thing. Like definitely periods of frustration, being like, not being able to do more than 5 press-ups without my heart rate just like spiking and just having to sit and rest. So that was like the first couple of months, maybe 3 months. And then I actually went down to Cornwall, stayed in the house down there to continue my recovery for a bit of change of scenery. Got to the point where I was independent and I could start cooking for myself again because again my mum and dad were amazing throughout it all. And the nutrition side of it all is another part of the conversation, like dived into vegan and caveman and keto and all the rest of it. So started becoming more independent, which is amazing. And that kind of gave me the freedom and really got in control again of me and what I did and how I did things. Having for the last 7 months, having everything done for me, driven around, made food, given my tablets, everything like that. So, yeah, man, just a couple of garage sessions a week, and you show up for the gym like it's scheduled, and before you know it, after a couple of months, then you're moving a little bit better. The heart rate doesn't spike as high, and got to the point where I was feeling pretty good, and actually got my dog who's 4 today, actually, little Maple. And that, but by that time I was feeling really good. I was starting to do some run prep because my tendons and ligaments obviously didn't have any force and robustness through them. So then it started getting pretty clear, like it was looking pretty good for me to make like a full recovery, having scan results back and what the doctors were saying. And again, like it was like a next job thing for me. Which it might seem stoic, I think it's hard to put myself back in the shoes then because of how like just brutal and ruthless I was. Because it's just like, yeah, I'm just gonna crack on and do it. Like if I've got 5 press-ups today, I'm just gonna show up and do that, and trust it. I think probably speaking about it now, like a lot of trust in the doctors, a lot of trust in Pete and the other staff at Pete and Ollie at Jersey, and just knowing that they're fucking rooting for me and doing everything they can and to put me in the best shape. And my family's there, and my girlfriend at the time was there, and man, it was proper like marathon, you know, which I really, I'm in it now, building a business. I'm playing long games. Val said when we listen to Val and Val at the moment, like play long term games with long term people, and it's like just sitting in it, showing up every day, and enjoying the cruise.
I love that. I love that. There's so much in there, and yeah, I'm not in the same position, but I'm hearing things. This guy's personally attacking you, and he doesn't even know it. Um, Amazing, like what you said about like the long game showing up every single day. If the plan says this, probably initially like 5 press-ups in the plan for you at that point in time would have been, like an effort level 9, 10, that down the line. If that is what you got to do, that 5 press-ups, like realistically, once you over over time, that effort level is going to be a 10, a 9, an 8 as that gets easier. Like that's honestly absolutely, fascinating. So you obviously went on to make a full recovery and got back into playing. What was that like? Uh, Lining up for your first game back in Jersey.
It was, yeah, really, it was great, but I had some serious issues with my feet, like not stress fractures, but close to stress fractures in my feet. And yeah, it was a pretty difficult time because the club were like, yeah, just having anti-inflams and crack on, and I got second opinions and stuff. And I basically couldn't run without pain because I'd been off feet for so long.
Oh, an anti-inflam, don't they? It's just
Yeah.
take one of these.
Yeah, that's one problem with modern medicine. It's reactive, not preventative. So it was great, and I played that Leicester. I played against Leicester Tigers when I first came back, like in a preseason game, and yeah, it was great, man. Like felt good in training, felt good. Like was still so unfit and like heaving around, but still like my skills were like still pretty good. I suppose when you've practiced passing and kicking and tackling for so long, like even 8 months or 9 months, like once you get 2-3 weeks training under your belt, like you're back into it. So yeah, it was a weird one. So I actually played that Leicester game and then had another 6 weeks off. So it was a bit of an anticlimax, unfortunately. But I got off the anti-inflams, let my feet settle. Ludicrous amounts of Jersey milk to get calcium into my body, which is quite good. And then icing my feet after um, any training I did, and then literally loading them like every couple of hours to stress them enough for them to heal. So it's like stimulating the bone. Yeah, yeah, I haven't thought about that for a while actually. Eventually got back playing fit, and it was such a strange period for me again because people didn't know how to treat me in a way, and I was cracking on like basically nothing had happened. And obviously people are like, "Do you want to talk about it? Do you not want to talk about it? Like, how do we approach it?" I had a meeting with coaches, and like I want them to push me, obviously, and they're like, it's gonna get to the point where we're gonna have to like fucking give you a kick up the arse because like if this is fatigue or is it your own thing stopping you, you know? So it was like this really weird, like no one had had a case study like me. So that was just really interesting. We did like a fundraiser um for a charity, and I don't know if you saw, but the boys got some t-shirts printed which went to Jersey and Hartpury, and they wore it from warm up, and um raised some money for Teenage Cancer Trust. Just felt so supported, but also felt like a black sheep at times, definitely, naturally.
Yeah.
Then after that, it was into the season, and yeah, that was another whirlwind.
What happened in that season?
Yeah, my heart rate was it was great, and getting into an environment like Jersey, it was certainly the highest performing environment I've been in. Like the schedule, the how they wanted to play, and how they want me to contribute to the team. It was nothing like I'd ever experienced before. Very structure based, but gave me some really clear kind of frameworks to play to. I felt the whole time I was like, in a what's it called, hamster wheel, trying to keep up. So I was doing all my weights, doing all my fitness, but then like game day warm, my heart rate was still because I was still my body had that kind of my cells just were not firing, both cognitively and physically. And they say, people have chronic stress from chemotherapy years after. I got back playing within 7 months of my final round of chemotherapy. 7-8 months. Yeah, it was like pre-season. When you're blown in pre-season, having not played for a while, it was like that all the way up to until Christmas. So that was really tricky again from a mindset perspective, and exploring different ways of like being efficient and allowing my body to recover and give myself proper off time. So that was just really interesting, and definitely didn't feel like I felt before because I was most of the time I was super fit. My fitness was never an issue. So yeah, I got to the point where I I was doing my best, what I thought at the time for sure, and got to a point where I didn't quite align with how they wanted to play. I was sort of just following orders, which again is great. It works. Jersey won the champ, doing it, and how disciplined they were, and all the rest of it was fantastic. I struggled with finding my own, like how I saw Sam and how I allowed myself to go and express myself on the field. It got to a point where I was just impressing the whole time. I speak a lot about it now, like playing such a finite, limited game. I was just wasn't enjoying it. To be perfectly honest, like any wins we'd had, we'd come to analysis, and just nothing was ever quite good enough. How I saw myself in that team, and I know the collective feeling was certainly a challenging and quite a forced environment to be in. And after Christmas, I then didn't play for a couple of months, and that's when I actually played my best rugby on the training ground because stopped giving such a fuck. Really allowed myself to fully express and to find that. And I suppose coming from having rugby stripped away from you and then coming back to rugby, not quite playing it to how I want to and contribute to the environment, which so many players are in that in that mode. That was just really interesting and quite difficult to kind of manage. I played a couple of games in that season, but I kind of made a decision like I wanted to explore something different, and that's why I wanted to express an interest to go to France, and got an offer and took it. I think the English champ is so great for developing players, and
That coach as well. they're savage as well. I'm a big Bath fan, and we've played Bedford and Ealing this year. But just the fight and the want and the can get a big scalp here, boys.
Yeah.
It's like insane. You can't rest on your laurels. Like watching the teams, I watched both games, and they're like, there's points where it's like, lads, you need to, butt your ideas up here because you don't want to get be in the papers the next day of like, oh, like big team, rest on the laurels, blah 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 blah, sort of thing. Like the fight and the want in the English champ is, like, ridiculous. It's so good.
Yeah.
Like a lot of, you think of, oh, we're playing the top of the Premiership, like we'll just roll over and not make a fool of ourselves. But like people go out there and want it, and it's so good to see.
Yeah, man, it's a serious league. Financial and take facilities out of the question, man, there's some like serious players in there. Yeah, look at like the Northampton lads playing for Bedford and like learning and developing there. Like that's arguably one of the best partnerships between Saints and Bedford. I was in Saints not long ago, and it was speaking about like it was voiced. It was saying someone was saying how important it was, and it's like, well, yeah, it kind of should be like that. The opportunity's there. Yeah, man, it's a serious league, and you can develop, create a career in there. Obviously, with the majority of people wanting to get up the level. But the champs are strong league.
So moving like nicely on to, you have this opportunity come up with a team in France. Rennes, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you get the call. So again, trying to go back to that like point of something that I really want to highlight with the podcast is like there's a few things that you said, and like this is why I knew that you would be absolutely perfect for this. Where you said about people who, there's that like living in alignment, being part of an environment is at the detriment to you and how you view yourself. Like, again, different circumstance, but something that like I relate to, and I'm like, nobody talks about this. So that's what I want to start to really embody with the podcast, and what I want to do in the future is a lot about that, the living inauthentically, the living like not up to the potential of who you think you are, and being presented with these opportunities. And you get this call from Ren, and what goes through that when these opportunities are presented, because moving to a different country, like us British, especially English people, are so reluctant to make that move abroad. Like, yeah, in rugby, like it's really uncommon. There is the whole RFU rules and stuff like that, but very rarely do people almost run away to France or Japan or wherever rather than go of their own accord. And that's what they want to do. Same with football. More so these days, but rewind the clock 10 years, you saw an English player playing abroad, you'd be like, what's going on here? So, these opportunities to make uncommon moves, which obviously, you have this opportunity there. Maybe it's slightly different given that you're in Jersey and you're closer to France than England, maybe, but maybe that's a bit more of a natural move. But yeah, like, what was running through your head when you get that call?
Well, like one thing comes up for me there. It's like everyone's got a choice. Ultimately, professional athletes. We're thinking rugby is like, oh, you don't decide where you go and play because it's whatever contract comes up next. It's like, no, you decide to sign a contract. The ball's in your court. And I suppose, especially with rugby, everyone thinks like it's like status games, right? It's like the boys who are playing Prem are definitely better than the boys playing Champ and the boys playing National One. It's like it's not actually like that, because I've always thought this, and it's probably my move to Rennes was third division in France, but again, it's not. You can't compare it because of the infrastructure, the financial, the style of play, the style of coaching, the people there. It's completely different. I've always thought this. It's like a young lad would actually be better off, most part, going to getting more game time elsewhere than actually being in a Premiership. Not every single situation. A lad who understands, learns, maybe has to work alongside, like has to really graft for his position, goes to a gym without an Alter G and like all the recovery supplements, and develops and plays rugby and plays in an environment which is not like this. It means any lad in a Premiership academy, it's not a lot of fun, right? I'm not saying one's better or worse, but people have a choice where they sign, and when you sign a contract, it's like you are committing to playing how coaches want you to play. You're committing to contributing to that team. But you do have a choice of how you show up to that. You have a choice with how you operate within that. And I've always said whenever I speak to players, like, yeah, the framework's there and that's great, but it's like there's always opportunities in the game of rugby to go and express yourself. Always, you know, even on, a Sunday evening when it's tipping it down, you know, there's always little sparks in the game, every single game. That's why, like, I think English people, it's great because our English culture about rugby is very structured and we do that very, very well, right? Compared to the French, which are definitely more open and expressive. But within that structure, like Marcus Smith, mate, you know, going down the edge, creating 2v1s, drawing people, passing. It's like that's not nothing to do with structure. That's him expressing himself and playing what's in front of him. Uh, and because he's so good, he's been allowed to do that, or he's allowed himself to do that. And that's like the ownership. That's authenticity. So for me, it wasn't a case of like going down a level or exiting the champ or shutting the door and getting to the prem or anything like that. It was like, no, like I want to go and enjoy myself, speaking to people. Good mates with Zach Henry's brother, who's playing over in Stafford. So I spoke to Zach, and he's playing top 14 rugby and started in National One, which was, yeah. Spoke to him, and he was singing its praises, understand the language, understanding how uncomfortable it will be, but also when you make your effort and really decide to thrive and give yourself and get immersed in the culture, then possibility and opportunities come your way. And I think a lot of my work at the moment is around living in possibility, and I think I embodied that even probably going for treatment. Like you can live in stress, you can live in lacking and worry and anxious, or you can live in the possibility like, okay, cool, there is a possibility here of me getting back to playing rugby. So living that, like even if like my body's telling me no or my body's telling me no, it's not today, like that's cool. When I lived in the possibility of like going to play in France and then getting to Pro League 2, and then that would have been a dream for me. So yeah, I jumped at the chance. Money was better. The perks with the job, the club, and what they were about really aligned with me. And yeah, man, it was excuse me, because I played in Australia as well, so I'd already had experience of playing in a new country with new coaches and just completely starting fresh. And so I had that experience within me, and yeah, I couldn't wait to get out of the champ, to be honest, mate, and just go and play structured rugby.
Yeah, amazing. So like getting like a sense of like excitement, opportunity, going on an adventure.
Yeah.
How did it feel when you started to like throw in and lock in with, the language, then, you know, that new culture, new teammates. I don't know what your French was like at the time, but most people can say that they would like a croissant, s'il vous plaît kind of thing. How was that situation of going there and kind of starting to embed yourself in that culture?
Yeah. It was like being stripped naked, and every single belief that I had and every way that worked for me of living in the UK, going to shops, going out for a meal, making friends, everything just been completely redone. So it's like getting naked and then putting on a new outfit, but the outfit takes like 6 months to get used to. So like complete, like just so uncomfortable, but like again, grown to kind of enjoy that, grown to when you speak French and when you're learning a new language, you have to try. You have to be courageous enough to say stuff, and then you learn. And so the boys who have really made a career in France and are really accepted and integrated into the culture are the boys that were probably laughed at the most at the start because they've been courageous enough to try. So spoke to Zach, spoke to like Shane O'Leary, who's playing over in Rouen. And they were both like, "You just got to try, man. Like the French will laugh at you, the English boys will laugh at you who already flew in." And just absolutely sent it. Uh, Studied hard, gave myself time, or like really made an effort to go out. And if it was an event or like just a couple of lads were going and they're all French and they speak good English, I could go. Like just go and experience it and just be in it. And there's that way of learning. I forget what it's called. Incoherent learning? No, it's not that. basically when you're just in it and listening to it the whole time, you pick up words and you pick up phrases, and it was just like that. I was watching Tintin on Netflix with French subtitles and French. I absolutely loved it, mate. Absolutely loved it. It's like dating and chatting to a girl, like with my partner now, Sally. It's like dating and then finding a bit more out and going really well, and then getting energy back from that other person, and then it's just like exponential. You know, it's like compound interest. It just goes. So imagine like that. So learning a new skill and then getting rewards from it, because boys are then enjoy how I've tried to speak to them in French and get invited to stuff. And then as soon as I get concussed in the first game, then the support around me is fucking amazing, mate. Because I've tried, because from day dot, I've gone up and tried to speak to people. I'm not the most, I would say I'm the most extroverted person either. Like, really, really enjoy my own company. But the first couple of months, making effort with general manager, head coach, assistant coach, S&C, every single player in the team. Obviously, some boys I spoke to more than others, but yeah, I loved it. It was like the facilities from Jersey compared to Rent were like night and day. But again, I love that because there's something about showing up to somewhere. In preseason, we gymmed in this it was like under a swimming pool in a leisure, like a swimming complex, and you're talking like benches without the leather on them, and just like old foam and kit that hadn't been used for a long time. But it's just like it was ready and raw, and I just quite like that. A squat's a squat, mate, regardless of how the bar looks or how the bar feels. And again, I suppose that, and speaking out loud, it plays into like, you got a choice, mate. You got a choice of how you view something. You can, the water in a glass, can be viewed as half full or half empty, but the water in the glass is the same. So, and that's the power of language. That's the power of cultivating a mindset where to own it rather than to be a victim by the way the gym is or the way the coaches are, So definitely I learned a lot about myself, and just chose to show up, mate, and chose to express myself on the rugby field. Like, rugby training wasn't great at the start, if I'm honest. I was doing drills, which I did at school, which is quite amusing. But I absolutely loved it, mate, and made some amazing friends. And thankfully, a couple of the Argentinians spoke really good English, so they helped me out a lot as well.
Something that I saw, ironically, with Marcus as well on your page, was about British culture limiting potential, and it's something that like I like exploring that idea, and it very much pricked my ears up hearing it. And I read your post, and something like a few things really like jumped out to me. It was about saying sorry for things that you're not sorry for, like walking past someone in the supermarket. Like, we as British people tend to just be like, "Oh, sorry," you know, loving to complain. And that's, like, I've caught myself recently, and I'm like, then start telling myself, "Sorry, I just like complaining. I'm like complaining. I like that's like just a guilty pleasure." And I'm like, okay, it is, but like, what's that? Besides maybe blowing off a little bit of steam, what's that really giving me? Really questioning that, and just like, something else that you said as well was about this constant feeling of lack, and I'm like, this guy been following me around. Like, this is it. It's certainly like it just like ruminates and stuff like that. And I'd love to kind of explore your thoughts on that. Was that the view? Was that having that opportunity living in France and seeing that different, or even Australia, like seeing that different perspective? Because I think being in those cultures, and that's why I'm so like hot on travel. And like, if any of my friends are like, well, I'm thinking about going to Australia, and I'm like, book the ticket, do it now. I'm thinking about going on holiday. Why haven't you already booked it? Go now, and just experiencing those cultures. And the more obscure and off the beaten path, actively encourage people to do it. Like, my favorite place I went last year was Montenegro. Rogue, but incredible. Like, would recommend it in a heartbeat to anyone. So yeah, do you think that was being in those cultures that inspired like that sort of like thought process for yourself to start?
Yeah, for sure. I look at going to academies and seeing young rugby players who have been given a contract at 18, and I look at their life experience. I look at how they've developed their interpersonal skills, and I think it's one way of doing it. But I think if rugby clubs are passionate about developing a human to go and play rugby, which they don't because they just see them as commodities, then they'd look after and give them opportunities, which is not just being in the UK. Like think of the diverseness. The diverseness, is that a word? Think of the range of people that I've met. Think of the different styles of being coached. Think of how I've exposed myself and chosen to be uncomfortable. Ultimately gives me skills to build a business. We know that rugby players, if you're happy off the field, you're going to perform better. We know that rugby players that have passions outside of rugby are more consistent and more sustainably internally, which means they're probably not as stressed, they're more peaceful, regardless if they have a family. So the post was an interesting one. I'm not, with everything I post, I'm not attached to being right or wrong.
Okay, I love that. Yeah, I got fitness industry where it is like you are ever so slightly wrong. I'm going to come for you.
Yeah.
Like it's horrible and shit and dreadful in every conceivable way. But like I love that, and there's like such strength from, and like for me as well, that admiration for you where you're saying things like, "I'm willing to be wrong." Like that's incredible. I just love that.
It's my role as a coach. It's like I don't give advice. I don't tell people what to do because that wouldn't be coaching. That would be being a dictator.
Like a technical standpoint, that's then mentoring.
Yeah.
Study that I've done around coaching and bits and bobs that I've done with it. It's like that you then become a mentor, but by definition.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Difference between coaching and mentor. Yeah, man. If someone sends me a message and say, "Mate, this has been awesome because it's made me think about something differently," I don't agree with it being limiting, but it's really made me think. Brilliant. Like because me expressing, and I've shown it, mate. And you spoke about authenticity at the start. The more authentic I get, the more joy I have, and the more fulfilled I feel. And if it's the faster I can get my ideas from this book into a post or put into the world or said to you, then that's me living in integrity, And yeah, I think there's a lot of power and freedom that comes with that. You put yourself out there and put your head on the chopping board, as it were, a little bit. But I'm also okay with that because again, through rugby, mate, I took everything so personally. I just took everything as an attack. I was such a victim to what coaches said, such a victim to what rugby culture said, how you should act in the champ, what you should do, who you should be, and that's limiting. So while the post said English culture is limiting, every culture's got its limits. Like some
Without a negative. Yeah, like it's I was having a conversation with someone the other day about someone said that they'd had something stolen, like a coat or something like that. Um, and I said, oh, it's really frustrating because like ultimately nothing's going to come of that. But you go to like say somewhere like the UAE, you do that there, congratulations, you don't have any hands anymore. Like there's a real harsh line of punishment, which is like, yeah, I could nick a coat, a nice North Face £150 coat, whatever. But I know that there's a clear like consequence for my actions. Whereas like more than likely in the UK, you do something like that, you're gonna get away with it. Worst comes to worst, you're gonna get a slap on the wrist. Don't do that again with something along those lines. But then you okay, so that's a positive. There's like a clear punishment. But then what if you get wrongly accused of something? You could then look at like other potential downsides. Like there is a positive and a negative wherever you go.
yeah,
Yeah, it's important to not forget that and just find something that uh, sits with you the best as it can do, I guess.
yeah. It's like it makes me laugh. Everyone about state of the UK. It's so expensive, and it's just a story. Like it's simply the story. What's the truth? Well, can you build a business and have a great life here? Yeah. Okay, I'll live in the possibility that's going to be amazing. Literally chose to move back to the UK to build a business. So once you get past story, you get into a powerful position because you stop buying into narratives created by the media and created by other people. Start listening to the truth, and often that starts in here. And when you come from that place of truth and how you want to live, which most people aren't doing anyway, because they're dictated by what you should wear, how you should act, and what you should be doing in a career. I'll go to university. Yeah, go on. So that comes with knowing thyself and exploring, discovering your own internal beliefs, unlearning ones that aren't serving you, and creating yourself in a way that's empowering and liberating.
Amazing. So, looking at my notes, we're a little bit behind, but in terms of what we want to talk about. So, obviously, you're not playing anymore. So, when you're in France, suffered with concussion quite a bit. So, and which is obviously really common in rugby, like the amount of times that you hear about someone retiring or being out for a prolonged period with concussions. Even in the Six Nations a few weeks ago, like Scotland, I like to think they would have won that or given Ireland a better game than they did. But two of your key players headbutting each other by accident is not always the best way of like going about winning the game. So just talk to me a little bit about your concussion story. So you said you had a concussion in the first game that you played for Rennes. How did that then develop?
So I had a history of concussions. My first three were head collision with my own teammate, like Russell. Like knee to the head, hip to the head. That was my first three. And after those ones, it just took me a long while. This is pre-cancer. Probably 2019. So I already had like three, just down to pure luck. And then had one at Bedford, had two at Bedford, in succession again early on in the season, then one in like February, March. Yeah, probably didn't feel like I was from a contact combat stance, probably didn't feel like I did enough there. So all of a sudden I've had 6 concussions in the first 4 years of being a professional, which is not great, doesn't bode well. So my capacity in my head was certainly lower. I recovered fully and passed all the tests and everything. Yeah, I had a first one in France again, just super unlucky, got a good line from a centre and turned and head on head. And then all of a sudden it was, would have been September, 4 months, 4.5 months to back training, and then had to do an extended return to play. Played 5 games in 2023 at the start, and man had another one, which was just simply a pretty inconspicuous elbow to the head, and that was the final one. I knew it was my last chance. I'd seen specialists in France and felt really good about it. And knew that if I had another one, that would be it. So I took that chance. I think anyone at 25 would take it. So I'm 25. Like, I've missed a lot of rugby out from concussion and from obviously missing a season, having treatment. So I just felt I had much more to give. And man had a period of probably 3 months where it was probably my darkest that I've experienced, having both my brain chemistry all over the place, managing symptoms, getting dizzy just walking, and also like thinking, well, what the hell do I do now? So that was again more adversity that I dealt with, and I'm just choosing to use it, mate. Like, I'm so grateful for that experience. I'm so grateful for what cancer taught me. I'm so grateful for finishing rugby at 25 because I'm fucking loving what I'm doing now. And I say that with like every part of me. I love how I dealt with things. I love what I did. And I love the experience I had, and I wouldn't change it because I'm 27, I'm 27 now. I'd have to find another career, if I remained injury free when I was 32, 33, who knows? So I've got a head start with every single one of my peers. So it was in France again. I was lucky to be in France, mate, because again, through insurance and financially being looked after, which has allowed me to come from abundance to start the business, which again is amazing, and I'm fully using it.
Yeah, no, amazing. Like, from what you were saying there, like, there was sounds like there was quite quickly a level of acceptance. Like, you knew you were on your last chance, and one more elbow head contact was gonna be it. So, something that's really, I don't think it's talked about enough. I know it's something that's going to be part of what you do, and like, just around identity change and going from Sam the rugby player, Sam the cancer patient, Sam the rugby player, then having to suddenly retire, like going through those changes. Although it sounds like there is, and from everything here, you've dealt with it like an absolute gangster, which is just like so good to hear. Was there any point where there was that like level of frustration and not quite, like almost fighting with it?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. And I think that's, no matter how well someone deals with something, there's going to be that, probably won't necessarily verbalize it so much, but there is going to be that nagging thought in the back of their head of,
For sure, for sure. Yeah, hindsight's a wonderful thing, right? We can, and again, that's a choice of how we view our previous experiences. I heard this one time, and it like really, really profound for me. Like, past doesn't define our present defines our past, which means again, you're in control of how you use or become a victim to what's happened to you in the past. Mate, yeah, for sure. Like those 3 months post my final concussion, just so lost. Was filling my time with drinking and trying to distract myself and escape, and very, very lost, very worried. Yeah, at the time, you just do everything possible. Like the fact that I couldn't then go and, you know, anyone who play struggles was just go and have a long run or go and have a good gym session. I couldn't even do that. So it was like, again, like slowing down as I had to do when I collapsed, when I had my tumor. It was like, there was probably, eventually got help and had traditional therapy and counseling. And that started the process of understanding what now had changed and my environment and the teammates that I now don't see every day. What am I missing from my needs? Like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And that knowledge put in place was really useful. And then, yeah, mate, I finally started to process cancer, process other injuries that have gone on, process other family stuff that had gone on. And yeah, man, that was like, people talk about transformation, like completely took the shackles off. I remember having sessions with my coach now, not in therapy, but after my therapy, like literally feeling like you've got like a plate here and there's just bricks like that and they all just topple off and you just feel amazing. That's probably the outcome. But yeah, man, like I'm not shying away from the fact that it was horrendous. One thing I did was just kept speaking to people, and that was certainly, I never like really went into my shell. Just kept speaking to people and was just felt really supported.
yeah, amazing. I think what you're saying there as well, again, it's just like it comes back to that, leaning into like a level of discomfort. And I know it's really sort of cringy to say, but like having those difficult conversations, like whether it's with yourself, coach, therapist, whatever, like, I know when I've been in therapy before and I'm like, I've gone full on moody teenager of like, well, I'm not going to talk to you, and paid like however many large amount of money to sit there and sit in silence for like, 45 minutes of the hour, and, having that. And then there's also times where, like the most sort of throwaway thing suddenly starts, like the house of cards suddenly falls, and you're like, "Oh, it only took that to start giving this level of," and I guess kind of the feeling that we're wanting, and like there's the thing that I always like lean back into is like this sense of freedom. Like that's really, I've learned over, like especially like to tell in the last year, like a level of like freedom is really important, and just understanding like how that can look, and making choices that are aligned with that sense of like freedom as well. So is that something that you kind of can relate to with, making like a decision, your decisions, like ultimately it might not be the word you use, sometimes you use the word peace and stuff like that, like leaning into decisions like,
It's not necessarily which allows me to get to peace and freedom, but I come from peace, love, and joy. I don't know if you've read A Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor E. Frankl, but he said between stimulus and response, there's a gap, and in that gap lies your um, freedom, freedom to choose. And he was in Auschwitz, and a psychologist in Auschwitz, and realized that they could take away his freedom of speech, freedom of movement, who he spends his time with, what he eats, but they couldn't take away from how he chose to react to things. So I come from the place where, and I'm not saying I'm perfect and this happens all the time, but just having the understanding that you when you inquire in here and have insights like you just said, like those shit moments, when you have insights like that and start being a bit more mindful a bit and bring awareness to who you're being and what you're doing, you then get to decide. You get to decide your destiny. So I come from a place of peace, and I come from a place and understanding that my awareness is unaffected no matter what. My awareness, which is me, was unaffected pre my first professional contract, pre-cancer, post-cancer, when I was in France, when I broke up with my last girlfriend, when I met Sally. It was completely unaffected. Knowing that there's a part of me that's gone and changed as soon as I came out of the womb to now, like that's fucking powerful. When I've inquired about like the physical self and awareness, that means that I can choose my stress. Like I just said there about like the UK and the narrative around the UK at the moment with tax, and like that's all story. And when you have awareness with who you're being, how you're thinking, and create thinking and beliefs that serve you and that are peaceful, then that puts you in a position of empowerment, you know, and then that allows me to give and give my highest form of contribution to the podcast, for presence, for serving my clients, being the best partner I can be. Certainly thinking about, I heard this one yesterday. It's like wisdom, again, it's from Naval. Wisdom is the knowing that when you make a decision, what will come of it in the future. And judgments are knowing what will come of a decision externally. And I thought that was really fascinating. It's obviously so important to understand the outcomes of things, or like through direct experience or through knowledge, that you know that if I do this, that will happen. That's so important. But yeah, man, I suppose my mindset and how I create myself and how I help athletes to, again, be an owner rather than a victim from their environment, from their mind, because a lot of people are quite tangled up there, and it's a battle, and it's like, it doesn't really need to be a battle. There's another way of doing it, which I discovered from my own direct experience.
I think that is a perfect place to press pause. Like I feel that we could go for episode 2. So when I'm looking for guests for series 2, I'll be hitting you up, mate. Thank you so much. That was incredible. I love doing these where I end up having my head spinning, and I'm like, calm down. I definitely feel when I listen back and go through for the edit and the clips and stuff like that, I'm gonna have to pick my head up off the floor several times, um, just with the wisdom, the insights, and just the slightly nuance to the way that you are and the way that you speak and your experience. Like there's so much in there to be inspired by, to be driven by, to question. Is Yeah, it's fascinating. So truly, from the bottom of my heart, mate, thank you so much for your time, so much for your effort, and opening up and being so honest with me.
Thank you for having me on, mate. Thank you for holding the space. Always enjoy sharing my insights and my experiences. Stuff has come up today which I haven't even thought about for a while. So it's been cool to revisit that. And yeah, man, thank you for the opportunity to speak my story.
Amazing. At the end of every podcast, where can people find you?
Yeah. I'm probably most active on Instagram. At is Sam Leeming 10. I've also got a website which describes and highlights a bit of the work I do and who I work with, which is samleemingperformance.com. I'm also on LinkedIn. And where else do I post, man? That's it. That's probably the two main ones. Yeah.
Amazing.